No other video game ever produced has gained as much positive and negative attention as Grand Theft Auto. Rising from humble beginnings, developers Rockstar North have continued pushing the boundaries, setting the bar high with every new release of the Grand Theft Auto sequel. The game's innovative, open-ended virtual environments are well renowned for allowing players the freedom to make choices and set their own destiny. From customising cars, cruising through the city streets, buying clothes and tattoos, riding bicycles, performing armed robbery, avoiding the police, and getting involved in gang warfare, there seems to be nothing that you can't do in the world of Grand Theft Auto.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco.
The digital electronic games industry has come a long way from early games like Pong. In the past few decades, there has been remarkable rapid progress in the development of video gaming technology. From arcade games like the now classic Space Invaders and Pac-Man, to the widespread domestication of the personal computer, and the impressive and rapid development of console gaming, creating some of the most highly sophisticated, interactive and advanced mediums for play that we can see today. It's no wonder that the video gaming industry has become one of the most powerful forms of media in today's 21st century. The Grand Theft Auto franchise began in 1997 when a group of developers from Scotland called DMA Design, now known as Rockstar North, released the first of the sequel called Grand Theft Auto. The game featured a top-down, bird's-eye view of the action and is almost unrecognisable when compared to the modern releases of the series. While Grand Theft Auto has now become trademark for its non-linear gameplay and immersive storylines, the first version of the series was nothing more than a free-roaming quest to gain as much points as possible to move on to the next level. This was similarly the case when DMA Design produced Grand Theft Auto 2 years later in 1999. However, while the goal of the game was more or less the same as the original, the second of the series underwent several key improvements, such as enhanced graphics, sound and gameplay, and more options for players to choose from, such as the ability to carjack a taxi and earn the fares. The first two games also established some of the widely known series standards that characterise Grand Theft Auto today, including the general aesthetics and feel of the game, the use of fictional cities based on real cities, and the use of in-game radio stations featuring original music.
Get up, lazy, it's time for work. What? You heard me. Up.
I know a place on the edge of the red light district where we can lay low, but my hands are all messed up, so you better drive, brother.
In 2001, the first three-dimensional version of the game was released in the form of Grand Theft Auto 3. Nobody expected all of the elements from the previous two installments to come together so magnificently as they did, and the game was greeted with universal critical acclaim and commercial success. In Grand Theft Auto 3, the open and non-linear characteristic of the first two of the series is taken to the next level, as players are treated to a rich and vibrant virtual city with various expansive areas to explore, each populated with its own citizens and an abundance of interactive elements for players to play around with. Legendary Games developer Will Wright praised the game, describing it as such an open-ended world where you can actually be very nice in the world and drive an ambulance around saving people, or you can be very mean. The game doesn't really force you down one path or the other unless you're playing the missions. For me, it's not really about the missions, it's about the open-endedness, going out and living a life in this little simulated city. It's like a big playground. In addition to the flexibility of multiple viewpoints, Grand Theft Auto 3 also features several other key improvements to the series, including enhanced audio and graphics, more advanced driving mechanics, and Grand Theft Auto's characteristic cinematic cutscenes and gripping storylines that wouldn't be out of place in the latest Hollywood gangster blockbuster.
Here, take it.
There's a new guy on the street, goes by the name of Spank. Some wise guy's been introducing this trash to my girls down Portland Harbor. Go and introduce a bat to his face. Then take his car, respray it. I want compensation for this insult.
The next release in the Grand Theft Auto saga comes in the form of Grand Theft Auto Vice City in 2002. With rich pop culture references to 1980s police dramas like Miami Vice and iconic mob films like Scarface, the protagonist of Vice City is a mob hitman named Tommy Vercetti who works up the ranks through a series of crime involving drugs and murder to become the criminal kingpin of the Vice City underworld. In contrast to Liberty City's dark and drab atmosphere in Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City features bright and summery landscapes to a soundtrack of 80s popular music. Some of the developments in Vice City include the ability to steal and operate helicopters and fire trucks, invest in property for hideouts or business purposes, and a wider selection of weapons for players to choose from. The gangster mob theme of Vice City is replaced with a similarly dark and gritty storyline of the gangster lifestyle in the next installation of the series, 2004's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Devane and Squire describe San Andreas as an invitation for players to try on the persona of an inner-city gang member, experiencing some of what it means to live in a stylised 1990s rap world. In San Andreas, players take on the role of gang member Carl Johnson, or CJ, who is thrown back into a life of crime to unravel the plot behind his mother's murder. One of the biggest innovations of San Andreas to the Grand Theft Auto franchise is the ability for players to customise CJ's hair, clothing, tattoos, and overall appearance, which in turn affects his in-game relationship with others, introducing a new role-playing element to the game.
Give up the money. Whoa. It's a raid.
Ryder, not this again.
The long-awaited release of the new Grand Theft Auto game is causing a bit of a frenzy around the world. Police in San Diego already arrested a man for attacking 2 employees at a video shop with mace, then stealing 2 copies of the game. And in London, a stabbing and a violent mugging reported minutes after the game was purchased. Veronica De La Cruz in Atlanta this morning. Veronica, what makes this notoriously violent game so popular?
Hey, good morning to you, Carrie. You know, most video game publishers would be happy selling 100,000 copies. 100,000 copies. That's pretty much the benchmark when it comes to success. And this video game is expected to sell 6 to 12 million copies. Now, to give you a little bit more perspective, here are the top 3 grossing movies of all time. Titanic has grossed $600 million worldwide since it came out 11 years ago. That's followed by Star Wars, Shrek 2. Now, this is a video game which is predicted to bring in $400 million in 1 week alone. So why is this game so popular? Apparently, gaming experts are saying the technological advances in the game are like nothing else they've seen so far. The game it's highly interactive. It lets you live in this virtual world. There, you're free to drive whichever car you choose. You pick a girlfriend. You play against other players all around the world. And gaming experts so far are giving this the highest scores possible.
Shut up and sit down.
In 2008, Rockstar released Grand Theft Auto 4 amid a flood of raving reviews, with the game selling more than 6 million copies within just a week of its release. Players in Grand Theft Auto 4 star as Eastern European war veteran Niko Bellic, who finds himself entangled in the seedy criminal underworld upon his arrival to the United States. In addition to the expected audio-visual improvements with the arrival of new gaming and computer graphics technology, Grand Theft Auto 4 takes a leap forward in the franchise by featuring the long-awaited inclusion of an online multiplayer option, enabling a new level of play never experienced before.
Blockbuster debut that would make any Hollywood executive jealous, except you couldn't see it on the silver screen, but rather on the small screen. The extremely violent video game Grand Theft Auto 5 shifted into overdrive, earning $1.5 billion in just 3 days and shattering
There seems to be no stopping for the Grand Theft Auto franchise, with the latest installment of the series, Grand Theft Auto 5 in 2013, establishing new levels of open-ended play, allowing its players creative freedom to be whoever they want to be, look like whoever they want to look like, and do whatever they want to do in a virtual world full of endless possibilities. It's no wonder that the Grand Theft Auto franchise has become one of the best-selling and widely known video games of all time.
There were no signs momentum was slowing at the Manhattan GameStop, where we ran into Teresa Rotundo. She bought the game for her 13 and 17-year-old sons.
I want them to know that I don't like it, but I guess I do let them play because all their friends are playing.
Of 6 major healthcare organizations, including the American Medical Association, have all testified under oath before Congress that there is a direct causal link between these games and teen violence.
Hijacking cars, assaulting pedestrians.
Maybe we can kiss. Why not?
Picking up strange women.
Violent video games have encouraged the killing of innocent people for sport.
A college student trying to play out one of the world's most popular and violent video games in real life. The young man stole a car and went on a spree straight out of Grand Theft Auto.
So the latest apparently culpable actor in the Navy Yard shooting, it's not Aaron Alexis, it's not the shotgun that he used and the pistol that he used to carry out those killings. It turns out it's video games.
While Grand Theft Auto gained its popularity within the industry for its breakthrough game design, it also gained its notoriety in a completely different way. Various media publications, politicians, and members of the public criticised the game's highly violent and sexual content, resulting in widespread outcry and moral panic about the detrimental effects of violent video games like Grand Theft Auto on children and adolescents. Although all of the Grand Theft Auto releases were rated 18+, with content aimed at mature audiences.
As we know, this is not for kids. This is for a mature audience.
It was clear that the game appealed to a much younger audience as well, leading to high-profile politicians such as Hillary Clinton getting involved in the violent video game debate.
Situation in which video games with pornographic and violent content are being peddled to our children. Today, I'm announcing, along with my colleagues, Senator Lieberman and Bai, the family entertainment...
The moral panic that followed the release of the Grand Theft Auto games revolved around the idea that playing violent video games will lead to an increase in violent behaviours, thoughts and tendencies, with some commentators even suggesting the influence of these games in the rise of juvenile violence, such as the school shooting incidences in the US. The arguments in support of the negative effects of violent video games are generally rooted in a psychological paradigm termed social learning theory, which was marked by famous experimental studies conducted by Albert Bandura in the 1960s.
San Francisco or New York. The model pummeled a doll with a mallet, flung it in the air. It was once widely believed that seeing others vent aggression would drain the viewer's aggressive drive. As you can see, exposure to aggressive modeling is hardly cathartic.
Of course, the answer to the question of whether violent video games will lead to real-life violence is clearly not that simple, and many scholars have criticised the validity of a lot of the existing findings of both the Bobo doll experiment and more recent studies on violent video game effects. In his paper, Gentile identifies the multiple dimensions that contribute towards video game effects, highlighting the complex nature of research in this field.
Hello Neil, nice to meet you. Dawn Hallibone.
Hi Dawn, nice to meet you.
Dawn Hallibone is keen to show Neil the benefits that come from using computer games in the classroom. As well as other games, Dawn uses the Nintendo DS, a popular handheld games console, which her school have invested in. One of the games being played on the console...
With the rising popularity and influential studies on the use of computer gaming technology in today's classrooms,
this is time-lapse. You look at the time on that.
There are also several commentators who speculate the benefits of playing violent video games such as Grand Theft Auto for learning and education. Higgin, for example, discusses the role of the highly exaggerated and satirical content in Grand Theft Auto for providing players rich grounds to initiate discussion on popular culture, stereotyping and violence.
Here we are, the bike rental place. Please don't shoot the bike rental guy out of, like, force of habit.
It seems like there is still a long way to go until consensus can be reached in the violent video game effects debate, with some commentators highlighting the risks of playing these games, while others argue its positive benefits. Regardless of which side of the debate you take, what is clear is that the Grand Theft Auto series is here to stay in the culture and lives of many of today's youth, perhaps until the next new thing comes around.